Gun ownership is a right and not a privilege. This was clearly understood in the days of the founding of the United States. Hunting, protection of our property, family, innocent people, and ourselves was common knowledge, and no law was necessary to declare this. This was understood under natural law. The Second Amendment was not conceived with these previously mentioned things in mind because they were self-evident. The Second Amendment was clearly intended for one reason, which was to keep the government in check and in fear of the people if they should ever overstep their authority. This tyranny comes in many forms such as corrupt politicians, police, and military which choose to ignore the oath to the Constitution of the United States. What would possess a leader of a country, state, or city to call for gun control? Why would anyone of anything want the people to register their weapons and/or confiscate them? Is it because they want to protect us? Do they want us to be safe? Well, why don't you take a look at the other historic people who have called for the people to be disarmed? Can you decide what their intentions really were?
The money you give can get what you need. A boat in the harbor, a house on the hills, a drive for the rides, a golden latrine, a private jet and a stretch limousine, an entourage leeching off your wealth.
These previous quotes clearly display that the leaders did not care for the people and only wanted to instill fear in them to rule with an iron fist. These tyrants' sole purpose in disarming the people was to suppress any thought of rebellion and the pursuit of liberty and freedom. History shows in every case of citizen disarmament, it is followed by a pile of skulls of those same people. These current examples of what should be civil servants have taken it upon themselves to not only ignore and violate their oath to the Constitution they swore to uphold and protect, think the people are too stupid to make their own decisions and treat you like children. They use class warfare, racial division, and the exploitation of tragedies like the multiple mass shootings that have taken place in recent times. They have gone as far as to stage some of these shootings because the American people have not bought into their fear-mongering and lies. The liberal media helps them with their lies, which is clearly evident in the media coverage of shooting incidents, but fails to give the same coverage when guns in the hands of the people are used to save lives. Why is there this mass movement all of the sudden to demonize the Constitution and the people who are loyal to it? Well, let's look at how the United Nations is working to move toward a one-world government. In order to do so, the last bastion of freedom must be destroyed, which is the United States. The United States hijacked government has already divided the country into FEMA regions, which have camps set up ready to accept people who will be forced there, much like the people were rounded up in Nazi Germany. They are preparing for massive loss of life because of the purchase of millions of plastic coffins. The hijacked United States government is preparing for democide, which is death by government. It is responsible for more death than any entity or natural disaster ever. An armed population is the only thing that stands in the way of democide. The United States is the last hope for the people around the world. We must stop any advances from a government who tries to register our weapons. Registration of weapons leads to confiscation, and confiscation leads to democide. Our founding fathers are screaming to us from the grave. They have left us the clear text in the Second Amendment and the reference to back up its intent. There is no interpretation, except for what it states. Here are quotes by our founders with their clear intentions. Only a fool, coward, or an evil person can interpret the Second Amendment in any other way. So what does it look like when people have had enough and justifiably take arms against the government? One of the most glaring examples is the Battle of Athens, or sometimes called the McMinn County War in Athens and Etowah, Tennessee. The citizens of McMinn County had long been concerned about political corruption and possible election fraud. The U.S. Department of Justice had investigated allegations of electoral fraud in 1940, 1942, and 1944, but had not taken action. A World War II veteran had decided to run for sheriff against the current corrupt sheriff. As the polls closed, deputies seized ballot boxes and took them to the jail. Opposition veterans responded by arming themselves and marching there. Some of them had raided the National Guard armory, obtaining arms and ammunition. Estimates of the number of veterans besieging the jail vary from several hundred to as high as 2,000. When the men reached the jail, it was barricaded and manned by 55 deputies. The veterans demanded the ballot boxes, but were refused. They then opened fire on the jail, initiating a battle that lasted several hours by some accounts, considerably less by others. In the end, the door of the jail was dynamited and breached. The barricaded deputies, some with injuries, surrendered, and the ballot boxes were recovered. The recovered ballots certified the election of the 5 GI nonpartisan league candidates. Many of the world teachers that the people who seek to disarm us follow even agree with our God-given right to defend ourselves by any means necessary, including the use of guns. The Declaration of Independence states what the rights of the people are, and our duty to abolish a government which seeks to place us into slavery again. Remember, the Second Amendment is an individual right and not a collective one. It was given to us by our Creator, and therefore cannot be taken away by any man or government. Any person or government attempting to take your weapons away, either via registration or confiscation, is your enemy and should be dealt with as such.